Welcome on into the First Round Fantasy Podcast, your home for second round advice, your first choice for first round fantasy advice. Gabriel Miramontes, Jacob Bartley. What's going on, man?
Not much, man. I am both, loving the fantasy football and hating it at the same time.
Yes.
It's always been a love-hate relationship, but I am actually looking forward to a break soon, to be honest. But we got a couple more weeks to go, so
You
I'm
better
excited for
grind it
those.
out, baby. You better grind
Oh,
it
yeah.
out. My dog waited until 9:06 this morning to start barking, and it just so happens to be the podcast time. So, hey, dog, be quiet. I got the
Hey,
beautiful
they're getting
scenery
their
behind.
thoughts out too. They're like F fantasy.
You know what? He's frustrated. He's frustrated because
Yes.
dad sat at home on Sunday and watched his playoff dreams fade quickly. That's correct. I lost every single playoff matchup I was in, so I'm officially eliminated in all of my leagues except for the one league where I had a bye because I was a number one seed. That's kind of the Cinderella story I have going for me right now. Jacob, what about you? How did your first round of the playoffs go?
Yeah, I mean, I made it in 3 leagues, and one of them I had a buy-in. So obviously I'm still alive. And the other 2 leagues I won. So I'm doing pretty good, honestly. I texted you about this, but I honestly had one of the craziest fantasy experiences this past weekend. It came down to Monday night. I was up by 47 points.
Oh no.
47 points. My opponent, Joseph Morsas.
Wait, you beat him. Okay, go
Yes,
on
I
and tell the
beat
story.
him, but he played AJ Dillon and Aaron Jones. So I'm like, when I have players going against me and I have no players going and I could lose, I don't watch the games because I don't want to root against players. Like, I'm not going to be like, no, don't give AJ Dillon the ball. Don't give Aaron Jones the ball. They were going to get the ball the whole game, and I knew it was going to be torture. So I'm just going about my night, da-da-da. And then Joe starts texting me. He's like, are you seeing this? And I check. AJ Dillon has 20 points. Aaron Jones has 20 points. And I'm like, what is going on? This is absolute torture. So I'm trying to avoid the game. I go into this restaurant, right? And the game's right in front of me. And at this point, AJ Dillon's been ruled out for a concussion. But to me, it's like, doesn't change anything. Aaron Jones is still going to get more touches now. And all I see is 33 getting the ball, 33. And I'm like, this is absolute torture. I leave the restaurant, get in the car. I'm just like not paying attention. Joe calls me. He's like, oh my God, did you see that? I was up by 6 points. Aaron Jones got stuffed at the 1 yard line, and Aaron Rodgers kneels it 3 times at the end of the game. I couldn't, it was such an adrenaline rush, crazy fantasy experience. I had to share that with you and with the viewers.
Clearly one of the more dramatic finishes to a fantasy matchup that we've heard about over the last couple of weeks. I
Yeah.
remember specifically in the group chat, Joe described it as the toe string or the shoestring tackle or something like
Oh,
that.
yes.
If you look at the replay, it's a little funky. But yeah, just an amazing story. Glad you pulled it out. Rooting for you
So
in that
glad.
league. We need a first round fantasy member in the ship, so I'm rooting for you. I met a similar fate. Not really. I ended up losing by 10 or 11 points. I started Christian Watson over Chris Godwin this week, and that wasn't the decision I was going for. It was actually Mike Williams or Chris Godwin, and I chose wrong. I started Mike Williams over Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin had a great game. I lost by 11 points. If I would have started Chris Godwin, could have pulled out the dub. But that's just not how it goes so far. Before we get into the other news today, thank you for tuning in. Please be sure to like. Let us know how your first round of the fantasy playoffs went. We may not catch you here live, but we're always down to reply after these videos have posted. So please, please, please let us know how you did. We're always interested. We want to hear these crazy scenarios. You can find us anywhere in the social media space, Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook at First Round Fantasy. You can find us here on YouTube at First Round Fantasy or anywhere you listen to your podcast, most notably Spotify or Apple Premium. Some other big news to go out today. Jonathan Taylor, number one overall fantasy pick in 99.9% of fantasy drafts this year. He is out season-ending IR, which when you say season-ending, it sounds bad, but there's only 4 games left in the season. But that's definitely your fantasy season. So goodbye to him. Jonathan Taylor, owner here. Personally, I traded him early on in the season, actually. He came back and actually showed some more promise once they put Matt Ryan back into the lineup, but it just never truly panned out, which is unfortunate for fantasy managers everywhere. But if you are a Jonathan Taylor owner, let us know how you did. Did you make it to the playoffs? Were you hindered by his lack thereof performance abilities?
That same matchup, I had Jonathan Taylor. So if he would have not gotten hurt, I would have had no sweat, but it worked out for me.
Yeah, you kind of like survived all odds, Jacob. The fantasy
Crazy.
gods are appeased by you.
Man, I'm afraid they're gonna rip it all away from me this week. So we'll
Not
see.
at all. Not at all. But they may or may not be ripping it away from Jalen Hurts, QB of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Nice.
Yeah, he is trending towards not playing this week. If he doesn't, I have snagged Gardner Minshew in our Dynasty League to cripple my opponent. So hopefully that goes well for me against Justin Morsaz this week. Yes, the Morsaz brothers are constantly in our faces. They are good friends of the show, obviously partners of the show as well.
Ironically,
but not this week.
In our Dynasty League, it's us four. So well, you guys know Joe and Justin from first round fantasy. So it's me versus Joe and you versus Justin. It's a FRF show off.
It's an FRF show off indeed. Really quick though, if Gardner Minshew starts, which it seems likely that he will, again, Jalen Hurts 2 days in a row did not practice. Is this kind of a situation similar to San Francisco where Brock Purdy comes into a situation where he's got a good defense, he has amazing weapons around him? Can Gardner Minshew find fantasy success? I mean, he has A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Miles Sanders, Dallas Goedert is coming back off IR. That defense is pretty good. Are we looking at a guy who can come in and maybe potentially be in your playoff lineup? Or are we just kind of like, he'll be serviceable, but I already have a QB in play for the fantasy playoffs?
So it really, really depends. I think he's more of a deep league super flex play, obviously, but there could be scenarios where there's no decent quarterback left on the waiver wire and maybe you're facing an injury and you don't really have a choice. He could have a good game. I mean, he has some great pass catchers there, so it's not a terrible idea, but you might have a better option. But at this point, all the good quarterbacks are taken off the waiver wire. Like anybody who was a decent streaming quarterback is probably already picked up at this point during the season. And even teams that aren't in playoffs, they're still rostering 2 or 3 QBs sometimes. So you might have to.
Let me ask you this question, Jacob. Brock Purdy has had fantasy success, like we just alluded to moments ago. He goes up against the Washington Commanders this week. Would you rather start Brock Purdy against the Washington Commanders, have a pretty solid defense, they're exposable, or would you rather start Gardner Minshew going up against the Dallas Cowboys? Who are you starting if your fantasy playoff hopes are on the line?
Man, oh man. That is tough. I mean, I'm probably going Purdy, to be honest, and no bias here, obviously. I'm just saying, like, he's going to get it to his playmakers, and they're going to make plays, and those are, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk. So I have a lot of faith in those guys. Not to say I don't have faith in A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, etc., but I just think, I think Purdy could end up with more fantasy points. Honestly, because of Christian McCaffrey.
Literally 9 dump offs for 60 yards.
Yeah, exactly.
He's him a good day.
Yeah.
I take Brock Purdy too in that situation. Let's see. Let's get to some folks here. David Tulane. Hey guys, what's up, man? Good to see you coming back as always. I know that you are pretty much out of the playoffs. I think he said that like the last 3 weeks we've seen him. Gio Ramos, Twins. Yeah, you said that, and I immediately looked at Jacob and I. We both have hats. We both have glasses. I have a little bit of a weirder, more Amish beard going on.
Yeah.
And my camera just paints me like as a pasty white ghost. So I'm very nervous about that. Jacob has
we're both
color to him.
We're both half white, half Mexican. So it's like
sure.
we've got this thing going, I guess.
It's a thing. It's a thing for sure. It's a thing for sure. Let's get into our dark horses, and it's just so stupid at this point. It's really just I don't enjoy it anymore. Literally, Jacob is typing in the live doc his players, and I'm like acknowledging the fact that Jacob, I'm literally watching you change it right now. It's not funny anymore.
I
Yeah,
didn't do it. I did that a couple days ago. So we have this ongoing thing where I put in Gabe's dark horse in
not funny at all.
His start of the week in the notes, and it's some random player, like usually some busted player. My first time I did DJ Chark, which ended up being like he's actually a usable player now, which is funny. But the other times it was like Julio Jones. What was the other one? It was Julio Jones, somebody else. Oh, Cole Beasley. It was Julio Jones, Cole Beasley, and now it's David Johnson. So, and I put in 25 points guaranteed. It's just so funny.
So funny, Jacob. You're the best. Before we
I guess it's only funny to me.
Yeah, that's good job, man. Hey, at the end of the day, you care about yourself, and you got to make yourself happy. All right. Let's look at last week's dark horses. I went with Cam Akers. To my surprise, and I won't go into too much information, he was a fantasy success. So thanks for listening to me if you started him out there. Jacob went with Gabe Davis. Hasn't panned out that well, but you're going to bounce back today, Jacob. So I leave you the floor here. Please, it's week 16. People need these wins to get to their championship games. Who is your dark horse for week 16 of the fantasy football season?
Well, I don't think you mentioned my failure last week.
I did. I went very quickly, so you didn't have to notice it too much.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's another mediocre game. Like, he didn't put up a donut, but he had a just, boring game output again. So,
all right, Jacob. Well, I'm going to stop you again and say, Jacob, for week 16 of the fantasy football season, who is your dark horse of the week?
Yes. So my dark horse, my start of the week for week 16 and the semifinals of the fantasy playoffs is a risky one, but I'm rolling with it because I'm starting him in the league as well. And that is Tyler Algier of the Atlanta Falcons. Now, Tyler Algier, he started off having a pretty solid start to his rookie season. And then it started to go away. And it kind of disappeared, even though the team was still running a lot. Cordell Patterson came back, and then it kind of became a 3-man backfield. And Tyler Algier was dropped in a lot of leagues, unless it was like a dynasty league or something. So last week I was scouring the waiver wire, and I had an extra spot on my bench. I threw Tyler Algier on my bench. What do you know? He has a great game. And my thinking was, they have a quarterback change. They went from Marcus Mariota to Desmond Ridder. Now, if you pay attention, they basically ran the same exact offense they were running with Marcus Mariota with Ridder. But Ridder's a rookie, still figuring things out. I figured, hey, they're going to lean heavily on the run game. Also, this doesn't matter as much with quarterback and running back as it does quarterback and wide receiver. But, both of these guys came in the league together. They're both rookies. I just have a feeling, they probably get along on the field. And I think that helps Tyler Algier's case. Add on top of that, Caleb Huntley got injured this week, so he's not going to be there.
He is on IR. That is correct.
So I was thinking, this is before Caleb Huntley got hurt, but I was like, I think Tyler Algier is going to have a good game. And he had a great game, obviously. He went off. Obviously, I didn't start him. I missed out on that. But now I'm thinking, okay, we're coming into this week. They're playing Baltimore, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
They are playing Baltimore this week.
Don't want to get it wrong like the Cam Akers.
Whatever, Jacob, keep moving.
Thing. But look, Baltimore's not the best matchup. But what do we say? It's about volume and it's about talent. I think Tyler Algier is a good running back. He's not great. He's pretty good. Atlanta's going to run the ball. I think they want to prevent Desmond Ridder from throwing as much as possible, and we saw that last week. He had very low passing volume. And who has the freshest legs at this point in the season? It's the rookie. It's Tyler Algier. So I think he's going to get a ton of touches this week. And look, normally he's probably a guy, even though he had a great game last week, he's probably a guy like he's not a must start. He's not a set it and forget it. Nowhere near it. But in the league that I'm starting him in, I had Jonathan Taylor. So I have to find a replacement. I also have Antonio Gibson in that league, who's questionable and playing San Francisco this week. And I'm like, I don't want to start Antonio Gibson. So I have no JT, no Gibson. I'm not going to start Gibson. I'm cool throwing Rashad White in there. And I'm like, who else am I going to start? I'm starting Tyler Algier. So I'm depending on him to win a fantasy matchup this week. And I think you can too. A fantasy playoff matchup, a very important one to get to the championship. So I think Tyler Algier, I think he's going to get over 15 carries this game, couple passes, and give us a solid running back 2 performance. So Tyler Algier is my start of the week for week 16.
Yeah, man. And the biggest thing too is that ever since Cordell Patterson has come back, it hasn't been the Cordell Patterson show. It's been a split workload. And I think as we kind of progress, and a big point that you hinted at, but I don't think you fully acknowledged, is that, bro, this team isn't going anywhere. That division sure is kind of up for grabs, but it's a hot mess in the South. I think the Falcons are going to pull the short end of the stick there. What that likely means is that, you know, we see them give Desmond Ridder a chance last week. I think we're going to start to see the rookie kind of pull away here as far as touches are going. Last week it was 17-14. Easily this week it could be 18-12, 18-11. We still know that the Atlanta Falcons like to run the ball, which is what they're going to do here against Baltimore. But I just think as we kind of progress towards the end of the season, these last few weeks, Tyler Algier could completely dominate touches in this backfield and take away value from Cordell Patterson. So not a bad pick at all. I love it this week. And Jacob, not bad. Week 16 dark horse pick for Jacob Bartley. Tyler Algier, running back for the Atlanta Falcons. I'm so happy when I have water. It's just a nice time. Let's get to Gio really quick here. He went into the playoffs in 2 out of his 4 leagues. He's out of 4 leagues total. That's not true. Isn't he still in pick 6?
No, he's saying he's in 4 leagues total. So he made it in 2. Yeah, he's still alive in 2.
Oh, I went 2 out of 4. Oh, out of 4 leagues total. Gotcha.
He could have just said I went 2 out of 4, but you know.
Hey, extra description, and indeed, we need that.
Oh, maybe he's saying he went 2 out of 4 playoff matchups, and he's only in 4 leagues, so he was just flexing on us. He made it in all 4 of the leagues.
That seems more like a Gio move.
Yeah.
The flex is strong with that one.
He's like, just so you know, I made it in 100% of my league.
We love producer Gio. I can say that because producer Jake may not be watching this morning. Anyways, let's go ahead. Let's move. Let's transition to another dark horse. Gabriel's dark horse. Yes, I referred to myself in third person there. My dark horse for the week 16, when it matters most. It's Mike Evans, wide receiver for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And, you know, you and I had the discussion briefly last week where, look, everyone is playing now. There are no more bye weeks. All these guys are back. So last week I had a really hard time trying to figure out, well, sure, I want people to start Cam Akers, but also everybody might be fully healthy at running back. I get it. Jonathan Taylor, David Montgomery and Dameon Pierce were kind of guys that we were fumbling around with. Maybe you didn't want to deal with the headaches of the dual backfields. So that was kind of my logic there. This week, Mike Evans has been someone who has been in your lineup early in the season. And as of late, he's probably been out of your lineup, most notably the last 4 or 5 weeks. He's failed to eclipse 60 yards in a game since week 9. But we have to start looking at some of the pros here, kind of build up ourselves going into this week 16. He's seen 9 targets in 3 out of the last 4 games. So the target share is there. They just haven't been good targets from a guy like Tom Brady. Also, we failed to acknowledge that if you can get points for pass interference penalties, then Mike Evans is king because he's clearly been getting action. It just hasn't replicated into fantasy. Last week, that all changed when they went up against Cincinnati. He finally, yards per target was up past 9.5 yards. That's the second highest it's been in the last 7 weeks. in the last 7 weeks. And most notably, that's how we've seen Mike Evans find success lately in his career. He gets the long ball. He gets the touchdowns. He's only got 3 touchdowns on the year. He hasn't scored a touchdown since week 4. He hasn't got any big long targets in the last 7 or 8 weeks. So it was nice to see that his yards per target went up last week. He eclipsed 60 yards. He finished with 83 yards, so that was good to find out. And I just kind of like the matchup this week. Look, the Cardinals, I remember specifically having this conversation week 7, week 6, maybe week 8 even, when we had more of a sample size, about how the Arizona Cardinals typically shut down the wide receiver 1 of a given fantasy team. And back then, the argument was good. But that week, my dark horse was Chris Olave. And, of course, it was the rookie who had to crack the code and go off for a great fantasy day against the Arizona Cardinals. Up until that point, they had stopped guys like Cooper Kupp, DK Metcalf, A.J. Brown. It was good. And, I'm not living in the past, but I kind of am. I'm very salty. The Cardinals have given up 30 touchdowns this year through the air. That is tied for 6th in the NFL, so bottom half. And yes, despite Chris Olave's success, since then they have fared well against wide receiver 1s of the opposing team. Who's the wide receiver 1 in Tampa Bay? Lately, it's been Chris Godwin. He's had success. He's been great. He's been catching touchdowns the last few weeks, which has been really good for his fantasy value. But how does that translate into week 16? I think he sees that focus on the defensive side of the football, which leaves room for a guy like Mike Evans to find success and hopefully find the end zone this week. Like I said earlier, he hasn't found the end zone since week 4. And I just think the stars are aligning for a guy like Mike Evans. I think he blows up this week. They made it they made it a real focus since that San Francisco 49ers game to get him involved, to make sure he's seeing those targets. And yes, he saw them before, but let's be honest, San Francisco was the low point. I have him ranked as my wide receiver 15 this week, which is by far his highest ranking for me in the last 5 or 6 weeks total. I like what's going on. I think there's a good narrative to be set here. I think there's good opportunity for him. The targets have been there all along. Now I think we see those bombs. Now I think we see those touchdowns. It's time to put Mike Evans in with confidence. He is a wide receiver 2 this week in your fantasy lineups. Jacob, thoughts?
Yeah, it's interesting that you choose Mike Evans because, in most years, he's a set it and forget it. You don't even think about benching him at all. But I do think people are going to be thinking about benching him this week. Look, he had a good game last week, actually. With
83 yards, 4 targets.
That's a really good game, actually, against a tough Cincinnati secondary. So, look, he has better matchups this week and next week. So, yeah, I think, normally it'd be like, why are you even bothering with Mike Evans? Because, of course, everyone's starting him. But I don't think that's the case lately. I think he's been on some people's benches, and it's not an easy decision, especially, you never know what somebody's roster is. Like, people draft at the beginning of the year and everything changes, and people could be sitting there with 4 solid wide receiver options, and they're maybe deciding between Mike Evans and somebody else. So I think it's a good call. I think he's going to have a strong finish in these last 2 games for the fantasy season.
Jacob, I wait for the days where we just disagree and have a bitter battle, like you hear Colin Howard or whatever, Colin Hurd or those guys on ESPN. But sometimes our minds are just alike, and one day we're gonna be at each other's throats, but not today. So Mike Evans, week 16, that's my dark horse, and he's gonna lead you to fantasy success and get you to the fantasy championship game. All right, let's get to some comments here, Jacob. We've been missing some people here lately. Yusuf in the chat says, won both my matchups, trying to make it to my first ever fantasy championship. Good luck to you, Yusuf. Let us know, man. I want to hear that team. Let me know. What team are you riding in to the semifinals? Let me hear. Let me see. Who's been a big star for you this year? TT says, what's up? He's got a question for us. Would you start Zonovan Knight tonight or Slayton versus Minnesota PPR flex? My gut all the way tells me Zonovan Knight, but I think I've been sleeping on Slayton. I think we've all been sleeping on Slayton. I think Minnesota is a good matchup. Jacob, I hope I bought you some time. Who are you leaning towards? Zonovan Knight or Darius Slayton?
That is tough. I know Knight didn't have a great game last week. I was trying to bring it up really quick to
He
see
didn't.
exactly. But and I know a lot of people were depending on him. But I guess look, teams haven't been performing against Detroit. Running backs haven't. So now he's playing Jacksonville.
Good matchup.
Good matchup. But like you said, Slayton also has a good matchup, but it's full PPR as well. And who else do they got in New York to catch balls? Not a lot of guys. So you honestly can't go wrong either way. I would, if it was my team, I would probably lean Zonovan Knight.
If it were my team, I would probably lean Zonovan Knight as well. I mean, the targets just aren't there for Darius Slayton either. 7 targets, 3. Saw 8 targets a couple of weeks ago.
But that is a great question. It's pretty close. But I just think if Saul is sticking with Knight as his starting running back, he's going to get touches.
Look, in a PPR flex, you're thinking who is going to catch the most balls? It's probably Slayton in that scenario. But also, who's going to fall in the end zone? I think it's split both ways. I think Slayton could have a 5 for 65 game, no touchdowns. Zonovan Knight could burst out and have we've seen him get that 13 to 17 carry ratio. He can end up with 15 carries, 80 yards, 60 yards, and a touchdown. So I just think the opportunity is better for a guy like Zonovan Knight as opposed to Darius Slayton. We agree? We're on the same page, Jacob?
Oh, yeah.
TT Yusuf, thanks for stopping by, guys. Be sure to give us a like. If we get it right, though, come on back, subscribe to the channel. We like to work for it here. Gio says, Flex 1, Chark versus Carolina or Godwin versus Kansas City. I'm not making that mistake again. Wait, what? Oh, Goodwin versus Kansas City. Good call there. Ride the hot hand, right? DJ Chark against Carolina may not be the worst option. Jacob, what about you?
Yeah, I've been really liking Chark these last few weeks, but Goodwin, I know since Lockett's out, Goodwin could see some work here, especially against KC. I'm assuming either they're going to be down heavily, or if they can keep it close like Houston did, it could be a shootout. But that is a tough, because Detroit has so many wide receivers. They got like 6 dudes over there, which is crazy.
No, you're right, Jacob. I'm going to stop you. You're thinking too hard. Tyler Lockett being out is a huge indicator.
Good win.
No, well, Tyler Lockett being out is a huge indicator. I would also lean Marquise Goodwin. That was an overthought for me.
I think
You're right.
Yeah, I mean,
Detroit's
just because
got a platoon of wide receivers. We
Yeah,
really only ever see 2 guys arrive for
Yeah.
Seattle. Marquise Goodwin is a good flex option there for you, Gio. Unless you're playing one of us, then go ahead, start GG Chark. He's totally going to bounce back off that 2-point fantasy performance that we had.
Because I have a feeling also Detroit Carolina is going to be either a low scoring game or Detroit's going to blow them out, so they're not going to need to throw a lot.
I feel it. Sam Seipel. Now, Jacob.
There we go.
Well, hold on. Sam Seipel, we know him as someone else, right? I forget. What was the name before?
Oh, I'm not sure.
He'll tell us. He's someone, and now we're just not used to the new name. But he says all in on Godwin. You all are some Skip and Shannon.
Oh, Wait, Skip and Shannon from
who's Skip
Undisputed.
Bayless and who's Shannon Sharp? Which one are you, Jacob?
I'll be Skip Bayless. This is fine.
All right, cool. I'll take.
Doesn't Shannon Sharp host, or is he the main guy?
No, I think Skip Bayless is the guy who hosts.
Oh, whatever.
We only watch ourselves. Yes, Nagra. Yes. I remember now.
Well, it used to be Stephen A. Smith and Shannon Sharp, right?
That was just it was Skip Bayless.
And then they got fired from ESPN.
Yeah, it was Skip Bayless and Stephen A. Smith. But yeah, I can't stand that guy. Anyways, but who's who? Well, we just decided. Happy Hanukkah. Well, happy holidays to whatever you celebrate out there. S. Nagar, do you celebrate Hanukkah? TT says, I lost Hurts in a 2 QB. Now my options are Foles and Davis Mills. Oh, no.
This is the week of the backup quarterback, isn't it?
Dude, Nick Foles, though. Nick Foles going into Indiana. Davis Mills, I don't know if you've been, because Davis Mills is kind of off everyone's fantasy radar lately, but he's been playing like split share with Jeff Driscoll. They've been like splitting time at quarterback. Davis Mills, he threw the touchdown last week, but I think I think Nick Foles has got to be the guy you lean, dude.
So I knew Nick Foles was starting this week, but it's just kind of hitting me. Okay, they're playing the Chargers on Monday night.
They're without Jonathan Taylor. So, like, yes.
I think Michael Pittman is going to have a monster game this.
Well, I think either running backs are going to have a game. The Chargers are dead last against the run. So, Deion Jackson, Zach
probably
could have
but
a good game.
Who's your best player on offense? It's Michael Pittman.
Is he, though?
100%.
100%.
No, what are you talking? It's not even a question.
Yeah, dude. I don't know. They don't throw the ball. They run the ball. So
hey, but they haven't had Nick Foles at quarterback.
I know. That could be the blessing in disguise.
Wheels up. I mean, everybody's
Super Bowl champion, baby.
Everybody's starting Michael Pittman anyway, but still, I just think he's gonna have a monster game.
Yeah. TT, hope that works out for you, man. Looks like we're leaning.
I'll be right back. Here. Keep it going.
We didn't even listen to your opinion, though, so let us know what your thoughts are. You going Davis Mills with that partner timeshare with Dress Fishbowl, or you going Foles, Super Bowl champion? You know, you got to start the Super Bowl champions. S. Nagar says, Godwin has a questionable tag. Yeah, but, you know, he's limited at practice. Whereas guys like, who are we talking about earlier? Jalen Hurts did not practice. Although QBs probably can get away with it a little bit more. But no, Godwin trying to right direction. Other questionable tags, leaning bad direction, I guess. Yusuf says he's been stressing about this decision. Who would you all start in the flex? Half PPR. David Montgomery, Latavius Murray, AJ Dillon, or Michael Pittman. Jacob, I'm so glad that you're back. You can finally let us know because your love for Michael Pittman is just so through the air. Would you start Michael Pittman this week or David Montgomery, Latavius Murray, or AJ Dillon? To me, I think I'm leaning David Montgomery. But they also have a tough matchup. I got to see who they play really quick. It's always tough when you get like four guys and you got to pick one. It's like, at least they start two. I feel like it makes the decision so much easier. But these are the decisions we're making in the flex. It's what we got to work with. Let me see here. Scrolling down too far. Jacob, are you back, by the way? Okay, just making sure. Let me see here. I don't know why I'm being able to scroll up so far. I can't find the matchups. NFL, get your act together. Oh, because you have to scroll down to get to the newer matchups. Look at me struggling up here without my co-host. It is what it is. Okay, there we go. Week 16. No. I was just looking at matchups this week. Yusuf says he's been stressing. And he wants to know, half PPR, David Montgomery, Latavius Murray, AJ Dillon, or Michael Pittman. And I was looking up David Montgomery's matchup because I feel like it hasn't been great lately, and they take on the Bills. Latavius Murray, the Broncos take on the Rams. Exposable AJ Dillon coming off that 20-point performance goes up against the Miami Dolphins. And Michael Pittman, we just talked about, they take on the Chargers. It's tough, man. It's tough. You have to pick one. Oh, my goodness. I'd probably lean in that scenario. I'd probably still leave David Montgomery, to be honest with you. Latavius Murray had a good game last week. AJ Dillon had a good game last week. They both have tough matchups. The Bills haven't been who the Bills have been. So I'm going David Montgomery here. Jacob, I'll let you get back to that in a minute. This is Yusuf's moment. He needs us. So please come in with your thoughts, but he's just out of it there. Jacob.
Let's move on. I wasn't here for this question. Yeah. Well, I came in the middle of the question.
I'm with you, baby. I'm with you. David Montgomery's the guy you want there. S. Nagra. I just like saying that better than Sam Seapoll, but it's okay, man. If that's your name, I respect it. He says pick up Purdy. Dude, Purdy's picked up everywhere. Let's see. I was getting Jewish vibes from Gabe for some reason. My bad. It's because of the beard. It's the beard.
Yeah.
It's the beard.
And our buddies rub off on him.
It's all good. I don't care. I have job interviews in 25 minutes, but couldn't miss this week 16.
Whoa. Thank you.
Dude.
Thank
you, man.
Wow, that's a compliment if I ever heard one.
S. Nagar, we know you have to leave here soon, but we're going live tomorrow night. There are 11 games on Saturday, only a few on Sunday, Christmas Day. So come find us tomorrow night We will be live answering Star Six questions for about 30 minutes. So see us tomorrow. Have a good day at work, man. Thanks for stopping by. We'll post some Star Six questions here. Please share your thoughts. Oh, that's good. Are we sharing our thoughts, Jacob?
Yes, I posted them so we can all discuss together as a community.
Looks like someone has some questions for themselves. Gabe
No,
Davis
I
or
just
George
want to.
Pickens?
I want some content for the show. The viewers can give us their thoughts. We can discuss.
For me, it's George Pickens here.
Really, even regardless of whether Kenny Pickett plays.
Yeah.
So even if it's Mitch Trubisky, you're still going George Pickens?
Look. I get it. Even if Mitch Trubisky plays, I'm still starting George Pickens. He hasn't seen the target share. Deontay Johnson actually had a few good games, but no.
Yeah, I mean, after last week, especially me putting my name on the line for Gabe Davis and then him disappointing. But that's the thing. That's how it works. The moment you be like, I'm benching this guy is when they go off. But still, I'm leaning George Pickens as well.
Perfect. Garrett Wilson or Chris Olave?
Now, this hinges on Olave is questionable, but it's probably going to be Zach Wilson again.
Yeah, but also I can't trust a quarterback who only throws the ball 20 times a game, and that's what the Saints are doing. So they'd rather just do funky stuff.
I don't think
all day.
How many times did Zach Wilson throw the ball last week?
I don't know, enough. And at least he throws to Garrett Wilson. I don't know who the Saints are throwing to.
I mean, Garrett Wilson still had a solid game with Zach in there. So I think you're right. I think especially with Chris Olave hasn't been the same recently. He's questionable. And to your point, the offense isn't the best. So yeah. And I think Garrett Wilson has he earned set it and forget it?
No. You'll see my rankings here shortly. I mean, okay. We'll see. It's tough.
He's on the cusp. He's on the cusp of that.
He's not there yet, especially with Zach Wilson back. Looking at Chris Olave here, he's failed to reach the top 50 the last 4 weeks. Or I'm sorry. No, that's not true. He's failed to reach the top 40, crack the top 40 the last 3 weeks. Wide receiver 40, wide receiver 40, wide receiver 50. Not doing it for me. Garrett Wilson, on the other hand, with Zach Wilson, fared a little bit better. Last week, he was the wide receiver 28, wide receiver 27. But we enjoyed those nice days with Mike White, where he was the wide receiver 5 and wide receiver 9. But yeah, going Garrett Wilson. Raheem Mostert or Antonio Gibson? For me, Antonio Gibson is the one that's trending towards not playing. I think you got to go Raheem Mostert here, even though the presence of Jeff Wilson might be there again. I don't like either of those, but probably Raheem Mostert.
Yeah, I mean, Mostert has a better matchup, obviously, and if Jeff Wilson plays, it obviously hurts it, but still, it's not like Gibson gets all the work. He shares with Brian Robinson, so yeah, Mostert's the guy.
Rashad White, Kenneth Walker.
So the only reason this is a question is because Kenneth Walker still is not practicing. And
he played last week and did great, didn't he?
Yes, but
against San Francisco.
Yeah. So I'm just saying he's going into the game banged up either way. But I still think it's probably Kenneth Walker. But still,
he was going into last week banged up, still played, still had a good day. Kenneth Walker.
White has a decent matchup though. So
fair. Sam says, "What time are you guys going live tomorrow, Jacob? 6 to 7, 5 to
we'll
7?
Talk about it. To be honest,
sometime
I didn't even know
after 5 p.m.
I didn't even know about it, but we'll figure it out.
I thought you agreed to it. We won't get into fights on live channel. Jacob knows. Yusuf, he says, Pickens, Wilson, Mostert, Kenneth Walker.
We went with all the same. Yeah,
we didn't even
all the same guys we decided on. Yep.
Yusuf, that's why you're in the fantasy semifinals, my man. With Mike White, Wilson is set it and forget it.
I would agree with that. Guy. If Mike White was starting, I think he set it and forget it.
Of course. It changes with Garrett Wilson. But he had fantasy success last week with Garrett Wilson. Never start anyone against the Niners D. I started Ken Walker last week, and he was actually the best by far over the last couple of weeks.
He was all right.
It's true, man. You can't trust that San Francisco defense. Or, I mean, you can trust it. You can't trust anybody going up against it. Jacob knows. He does know, but he doesn't know this one.
Yes.
So I guess we'll figure
Well,
it
I'm
out
benching
later.
Antonio Gibson this week, no question.
Jacob, you ready to get into some rankings, my man?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Because I have my screen funky like this, though, I gotta. Oh, there we go. Let's. You gotta remember to tell me to set these up before we go.
My favorite segment, Gabe's Guys, his rankings for the week.
Gabe's Guys. That's what we're gonna call it, dude.
Yeah.
I like it. Let's get them up on the screen here. Let's zoom this screen in so people can see what we're talking about.
Okay, I like this a little better.
It does look a little bit better, huh? It's a little bit more organized, a little bit more concrete. Let's get into our Week 16 rankings for the fantasy football season. Obviously, by now, we should know, especially in the running back landscape and pretty much the wide receiver landscape as well, not too much has fared differently. The only major jump up we have here is Saquon Barkley. Last week with the neck concerns, you take those very seriously as fantasy managers, and obviously in real life, get better soon. Saquon Barkley. He came out, he played, was limited. This week so far, he's been a full participant. Looks like there are no strings coming back. He's got a great matchup against the Minnesota Vikings. He jumps up 10 spots for me. So, again, if you saw last week, he was ranked running back 14. If you were starting him in that running back 2 range, you probably were hurt by him. Should have listened, just saying. I don't always get it right, but you probably all were listening, or you probably all got it right. Dalvin Cook, Tony Pollard, Josh Jacobs, Ramondre Stevenson, Aaron Jones, and James Conner round out the top 10. Aaron Jones and James Conner being one of the two, or being two of the biggest risers for me this week. James Conner, I just think with that QB change, and he's been playing well as of late, definitely has some appealing matchups here against a Tampa Bay defense that has struggled against the run as of late. They've been good early on. They've struggled as of late. We move down into the 10 to 20 range. Alvin Kamara, Najee Harris jumps up 4 spots for me, mainly because of the matchup going up against Las Vegas here. Nick Chubb, Joe Mixon, Miles Sanders is a faller only because the matchups in front of him are just so good. Last week we saw a couple of other players over there in Philadelphia get those touchdowns too. Not taking anything away from Miles Sanders, by the way. He's been a fantasy darling this year. I know Jacob talked about it last week. Just been really good. Slides a little far back this week. Still a running back 2 in my eyes. Ezekiel Elliott, J.K. Dobbins. Don't sleep on that man, Jacob. He didn't get the touchdown last week, but he was still great. And I had him ranked inside the top 10. Didn't finish there. Still great, though, which is why he meagers back just a little bit, but not enough to make a noticeable change in my rankings. Jerick McKinnon. Dude, the biggest fluke in fantasy football this year is Jerick McKinnon. Whether it's an underhand throw, a 7-yard screen, the dude is taking things into the house. People are clearly going to be starting him this week over his counterpart, Isaiah Pacheco, who I have him down 9 spots. McKinnon moved up 10 spots. It's just pick your poison. I got to ask you right now on the spot, Jacob, who are you starting, Jerick McKinnon or Isaiah Pacheco? They're going up against Seattle, literally bottom 2 against the run. Who are you going with?
I kind of want to start both of them, to be honest. If I can make it happen, I would love to have one of these guys in that league where I'm struggling to start running backs, but this is tough, man. How do you not go with McKinnon? He's been the top scoring running back the past 2 weeks in fantasy.
It feels so fluky, though. It's just a weird feeling.
It really does. But the thing is, how do you think this game's going to go? But the thing is, I say that, but when the Chiefs are up, they don't run the clock out. They just keep scoring. So,
if they're bound to keep scoring, who's going to get the work? Running backs, pass catching running backs. So,
I'm making some notes about like which players on your rankings I want to talk about, and I did write down McKinnon and Pacheco. I think you're crazy. I think they should both be higher. I think both of them should be a little bit higher, to be honest. And if you have both of them on your roster, good for you. But I would go McKinnon. I think you have to go McKinnon. It's hot streak, man. You have to.
Much like my love for Christian Watson, wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers earlier in the year, my status never changes. You ride the hot hand, which is why I have McKinnon a little bit higher. I don't know. I'm scared.
This is a
If I
rare
had to,
scenario where I don't mind starting both. Like I look at McKinnon more like a wide receiver in this scenario, and Pacheco's the running back. So yeah, don't force it. Don't force starting them both. But like, unless you have a stacked lineup, you could probably get them both in.
now, just looking here at the 10 through 20 range, I can definitely see a scenario where he has started McKinnon or Pacheco. You can make the case for them to be started over guys like Kamara, guys like possibly Joe Mixon. I just kind of like Joe Mixon this week. He's been down the last couple of weeks, but gets that New England defense where we know that they're always scheming something. And look for Jamar Chase to take a hit in the rankings, as we'll see with the wide receivers here in a moment. But I mean, there's a chance they could jump Dobbins as well. So in reality, there is a realm where they're ranked 17 and 18 accordingly, but we could see them finish, 12, 13, 14 in that range. That's kind of where I have him. Kenneth Walker rounds out the top 20 for me this week. And as we go a little bit further down, we get into that 21 to 30. David Montgomery against Buffalo. Travis Etienne is really the only noticeable faller for me in this back half here. Falls 4 spots against the New York Jets. Tougher matchup. And he's just had really bad fumbling problems. He's been touted out of college as like this supreme pass catching running back, and he's just never evolved into that. He is a through the tackles running back that they are using him that way. He's found success. I get it, but I don't know. And I have him ranked accordingly. DeAndre Swift, Jamal Williams, Latavius Murray, Leonard Fournette, Rashad White, Raheem Mostert, Devin Singletary, and Cordell Patterson round out the top 30 for me. Looks like I'm off by 1. Did I fix it? I did not. So, Jacob, who's your 30th running back? I don't know. I always get confused. I got to get rid of these numbers. But
Tyler Algier.
20. Tyler Algier is a fine pick. Let's put him in live.
My must start of the week didn't even make the top 30, but it's all right. Hey, his name's Tricky. You got it? You decided not to spell it?
No. Jacob, shut up.
It's E-I-E-R. It's so tough.
Whatever, man.
All right. So other than McKinnon and Pacheco, so Miles Sanders, is his ranking strictly because they're playing Dallas and because he had a bad game last week?
Combination of both, to be honest with you. Yeah, I think Dallas is pretty good. That front seven is deadly.
So what about the fact that
Jalen and they just get more people involved? And yes, Jalen Hurts doesn't
not
play.
Playing.
Look, I had this ranking in mind, actually kind of leaning on the side where Hurts did not play. I just think that, Dallas has more on the line here than Philadelphia. Philadelphia really only needs to win 1 of the next 3 games to lock up the NFC. Like, that's it. Whereas Dallas, they're playing for positional seeding right now. Their fate is entirely more dependent on their finishes than, let's say, the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't know. I'm not saying they're taking it easy. I think this is going to be a great game. It's finally the first time in a couple of years where we can say the Philadelphia Eagles and Dallas Cowboys are like both good in week 16 of the season. And so I don't know, like, he's still a running back too. And when I say things like this, when I look at my rankings, yes, he's one of my biggest followers this week, but also he has a chance. I mean, look where I had him last week. He's my biggest follower, but technically I had him ranked inside the top 6 last week, right? So when you look at it that way, I think his potential is there. There's definitely a world where he can go into the top 10 discussion without a doubt. But, there's just always multiple scenarios. I'm not coming at this from the perspective where he is a running back too this week. That's all he will be. No, he has room to grow. But
of course, yeah.
Minshew coming in, Dallas front 7 pretty good. I just don't think the stars align this week. I think it's a little rough for the Philadelphia Eagles if Minshew plays. And that's kind of how I have him ranked accordingly.
Yeah, so one more thing. So you feel pretty high on Kenneth Walker, right? Like earlier you were saying that he was injured last week and he played and he was fine, and you guarantee over Rashad White. So he's ranked pretty low though here at 19.
Yeah, he's ranked inside the top 12. So low is a weird word, right? Like he's still a running back too. I don't
Yeah.
think, and likely you might be playing in leagues where yes, you might have Kenneth Walker and Nick Chubb because Kenneth Walker people drafted a little bit later. You might have Joe Mixon and Kenneth Walker. Those situations, you're starting him over those. I mean, you're starting him with those guys. Like if those are your
Yeah.
running backs, you're starting both of them. What we really have to look at is who's behind him in this situation because I do think that there are a lot of better matchups this week in front of him. Behind him, though, I mean, you're starting him pretty much over guys like Montgomery, Swift, Williams, Murray, Fournette, all of those guys, which is why I haven't ranked accordingly.
Yeah.
But I just think there's more opportunity in front of him this week. But like I said with Miles Sanders, there's a world. Kansas City is trash against the run. I did look. I saw he had the questionable tag. Last week it wasn't so good against FS. But when you look at that game against FS, yes, it wasn't like a really great game. He had one of the best games against SF compared to any running back over the last 7 weeks. So clearly he's
Other
talented.
than, you know who?
Who? Just tell me.
Christian McCaffrey, which is ironic because
like he played them before he got
Carolina. When Christian McCaffrey was still in Carolina, he had the best running back performance against the Niners.
Sure.
Which is pretty ironic.
It makes sense. But no, still one of those other guys has a lot of ceiling in front of him. He's definitely another guy that can ride into that top 12 discussion. So yeah, kind of why I haven't ranked accordingly.
Sounds good, man. Running back rankings look good.
Running back rankings look good. Look good as always. Next year, I'm going to get really ballsy. And I plan to have them side by side with their actual finishes, which I could do. Anybody here can look it up. But for visual preferences, I really want to have where they actually finish. So whereas if Eckler is the running back 3 in my rankings this week and he finishes as the running back 7, I want to see that discrepancy as well. Really learning here, and I'm learning with all of you guys as well. So thanks for listening to Gabe's Guys. I think we tagged it, Jacob. Gabe's Guys. I got a lot of guys, though, dude. I got too many guys. I don't like that, actually. I want to change that. It's way too many guys in one room. I'd feel claustrophobic and a little weird.
Well, I think you might have a better name here. There we go.
He probably went to work, but his name stays. The Gabe's Greatness Gauge. I love it.
There we go. But not Russell Gage.
Yes, but not Russell Gage. Before we get to our wide receiver rankings, I'm going to pull this back a little bit because we got some people on screen that I want to share some love to as well. And let's see. First, we have Elisa Orso. She says, Dak or Danny Dimes in standard this week. You got to go Dak Prescott. I think you got to go Dak Prescott here over Danny Dimes.
Dak
I want to look at the match
for sure.
Sure. I was just talking about it. Who did they play?
I think the New York has a good matchup, but I would still go Dak.
Yeah. Yes. Danny Dimes
did your dog just say go Dak?
Go Dak. Yeah, he did. Yeah. Nice shot. Can you see Otis back there? No, he's just out of screen.
This is our third member.
Like I'm literally itching his nose right. Oh, get my house out of the picture.
That's our third member right there.
Otis. He's always coming in with his hot takes. Yeah, you know, I get it. Dak Prescott doesn't have a good matchup against the Eagles. I just think there's more variety there. I just think there's more of a chance. Whereas the Giants have dropped like 6 of their last 7. It's not looking good for them. Meanwhile, I think the Cowboys have something more to prove, and Dak gets it done this week. Has a better fantasy day than Danny Dimes. Elisa comes back with DJ Moore or Mike Williams this week. Mike Williams, strong bounce back candidate for me. I am going Mike Williams over DJ Moore this week.
Agreed.
Elisa, I think you're new. Thanks for coming by. We appreciate you. If we get them right, you got to come back and subscribe, but we'll take a like for now. So thank you so much. We appreciate your questions. Feel free to come back with more anytime you please. Danny Flores says, flex ETN or Dotson or Gabe Davis. I'm still going ETN here. I know I just crushed him in my rankings a few minutes ago. Dotson is the rookie TD monstro, right? Like that's kind of what his claim to fame has been the last couple of weeks. Gabe Davis also highly volatile. ETN is going to be the only sure thing there. 13 to 18 carries. He's going to get you points on the ground. I like him this week over guys like Dotson.
Yeah, look, ETN hasn't been great the past month or so, but you got to go with ETN. He's going to get the most touches. Jacksonville's playing really well. Dotson, the 49ers actually, the one position that does do well against the 49ers in fantasy is the wide receiver position. So Dotson is not a bad play. Obviously, we talked about Gabe Davis a lot. He's been struggling. He's been very, I guess, disappointing. He's not giving us the boom games anymore. So, yeah, you got to go ETN.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. We appreciate it. Let's get the screen back up here. We're going to get to our wide receiver rankings here. We're going to blow through these guys really quick. And no, that's Jacob. Just stop.
Gabe's guys.
Let's go to the top. Stephon Diggs jumps up 4 spots this week. Love the matchup against Chicago. He's my number 1 overall wide receiver this week. Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson follows suit. Again, not too much change there, rounding out the top 6. Chris Godwin jumps up into the top 10. Now, listen, I am realizing this in real time that I trashed Chris Godwin against Arizona this week. I think that they're going to phase him out completely. I am making live, indirect changes to my rankings as I go. I could easily see him fall out of the top 12. Keenan Allen jumps in. Jamar Chase jumps in. A.J. Brown jump in, which make their changes just a little bit less noticeable. Let's move in here. 10 through 20. CeeDee Lamb, Jalen Waddle, welcome back to the top 12 this week. Good matchup against Green Bay. DeAndre Hopkins, Mike Williams, who we were just talking about with Elisa over here. I have him ranked, of course, obviously higher than DJ Moore. Not to say anything bad against DJ Moore. I just think Mike Williams is in prime position for a bounce-back game. Mike Evans, my dark horse of the week, jumps up 10 spots against Arizona. Look for him to have a big day. Finally find the end zone against that Arizona defense. Again, 6th in terms of giving up touchdowns. They've given up 30 this year. T. Higgins, Garrett Wilson, he has fallen 9 spots. Even though with the matchup, I still don't like Zach Wilson. Was it a fluke last week? I don't know. String it more together. He's still a wide receiver too for me, so you're probably starting him. Juju Smith-Schuster, Christian Kirk, and Zay Jones round out the top 20. Yes, that's right. Zay Jones. He's been on an absolute tear the last month of the season. Quite frankly, I'd rather have him in front of Jones. So ranking it on the spot here, Zay Jones in front of Christian Kirk. Terry McLaurin, 21. Devontae Smith falls a few just because of the matchup. DJ Moore against Detroit. They have been playing a lot better. Yes, the Detroit Lions have been playing a lot better. I have Deontay Johnson here. We talked about him and George Pickens earlier, whereas if Kenny Pickett is playing, we like George Pickens more. Right now, I have this ranking as Mitchell Trubisky starting, which is why Deontay Johnson gets the juicy matchup against the Las Vegas Raiders. Amari Cooper falls 12 spots for me. Last week, we were talking about it. You know, he had really good home matchups, and he's had really good home performances. It wasn't a good home performance last week. Deshaun Watson still hasn't figured it out, even though they scraped out the win. He falls 12 spots against an even tougher defense, in my opinion, against the New Orleans Saints. Jerry Jeudy, Christian Watson, my guy, Christian Watson, falls 3 spots. We found out last week when he doesn't catch touchdowns, it doesn't replicate fantasy success. He's a highly volatile wide receiver 3 for me, with obviously clear wide receiver 1 upside. But if you want consistency, the guys before him are going to give you that. Brandon Ayuk and Darius Slayton round out the top 30 for me, with Drake London going up against Baltimore. Yes, Drake London. He creaks in there. Desmond Ridder, look for him to not be great, but you can't really
all of his volume went to Drake London.
Not only that, but you know, you got to expect that he gets a little bit more comfortable going into his second NFL start. And Drake London falls into the top 30 because of that. I shouldn't say falls in, rises up into the top 30.
I'm telling you, man, rookie camaraderie is a thing. It's a thing.
Rookie camaraderie is a thing. Now, Jacob, I know you want to talk, you want to ask questions, but also.
Well, yeah. Go ahead. I did have a couple questions regarding your wide receiver.
Let's get it. I'll bring it back up.
Well, you don't have to bring it up, but so Jamar Chase drops 7 spots from 2 to 9. Why so strongly on the drop there?
I think you just got to look at who New England plays. New England is really good, whether it's the running back position, the wide receiver position. They clearly look to their game plan always focuses around shutting down someone's number 1. Jamar Chase is the number 1 option there in Cincinnati. Still a top 10 guy for me, which I honestly thought he could have fared far worse. And with the acknowledgement that Chris Godwin actually falls back, 8-7 is perfectly in the range for Jamar Chase. But temper your expectations because he could easily be a guy that falls outside of the top 15, or at least at the very most. out of the top 12 discussion.
Okay. And then we talked a lot about Garrett Wilson already. I see you have him at number 17. So obviously this is just like a gauge, your Gabe's greatness gauge. But what is like Garrett Wilson plays tonight, Thursday night. You don't like Thursday night matchups. Also,
I really don't.
It's not Mike White. It's Zach Wilson. So what is Garrett Wilson's ceiling this week? Like how high do you think he could potentially finish? We're considering all these circumstances.
Yeah, well, last week I think he finished kind of in that same similar ballpark. I'd love to look it up before I do. I know I had it earlier. Oh, look, for some reason I have Garrett Wilson up right in front of me. Last week he was the wide receiver 28, and that was with Garrett Wilson. That was with Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think this kind of is his ceiling. It's not really a better matchup. It's kind of like a similar matchup.
Yeah.
I will say that Detroit's been playing better as of late, whereas Jacksonville's just kind of been the same, middle of the pack, kind of approachable for wide receivers all year long. But, I mean, to me, this is his ceiling. Maybe he can crack the top 15, but I think right inside the top 20 is where he falls this week.
Perfect.
Which is good because that's accounting for Zach Wilson, clearly trying to keep his job still. Maybe he's realized that. He's got to throw the ball a little bit more. Maybe make better decisions. So that's kind of why I have him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm starting him this week in a crucial matchup, so need him to do something.
Yeah, well, we forget when we're ranking the top 30 at each position, like these guys are mostly in all lineups until you get to that 25 to 30 range.
That's a good point.
So you're not really ranking them like, I got to start this guy over this guy. It's like, no, you likely – these guys are all taken in some extent, or you have these guys. But if you have Juju and Kirk, you're probably starting them both. If you have DJ Moore and Deontay Johnson, on the other hand, you're probably deciding, okay, who am I starting? Because at that point, you probably have some of these guys at the top here, which means you have to pick one of the two. Good call there, Jacob.
Yep, sounds good, man.
All right, man. I'm taking that out. We're getting back over here. Those were Gabe's greatness gauge. That didn't sound right. That was the Gabe's greatness gauge of the week. Did it sound good? We'll have to ask S. Nagra later on if it really sounds right. We got to fire through some questions here before we get to our DFS here. Chris Ganova, what's up, guys? What's happening, man? Chris, thank you so much for coming out. He's stumped at QB this week with Hurts most likely out. Would you guys roll out Lawrence or one of Minshew Purdy? Dude, Lawrence has been on a tear. Was that what you were trying to say, Jacob?
Oh, I was just saying Trevor Lawrence, no question. Isn't he like QB6 on the year?
Dude, no. Not only that, over the last month, he's like QB4 on the year.
Yeah.
So, or QB4 over the last 4 months.
It's happening after I trade him in Dynasty. Of course, he starts going off.
Trevor Lawrence is there for you, Chris Ganova. Hey, man, we appreciate you. And also, those are good decisions to have. Purdy finally faces a good defense against Washington and Minshew against Dallas. So definitely Trevor Lawrence for us. Thanks for coming out, man. If we get it right, please come back and subscribe. Regardless, we worked it off already, so drop that like if you can for us. Clamped Easy says James Conner or David Montgomery this week. We were just talking about my rankings. I have James Conner in the top 10 discussion against Tampa Bay. Montgomery right around the top 20 for me. James Conner, it is this week. I just think they're going to lean heavily. They have been with Ripon in at quarterback. So, yes. No. Ripon's not in at quarterback. Cole McCoy's injured now. I don't even know who they're starting. They're going to be running the ball a lot against Tampa Bay this week. I think James Conner has fantasy success. Jacob?
Agreed.
Alicia says, thank you so much. No. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to come and give us some questions to talk about. We're not professionals. We just like talking fantasy football. We appreciate that you are lending your ear to us. So thank you so much, Elisa. We appreciate it. Jacob, it's our last segment, man. You ready to roll through this?
Let's do it.
And let's get our DFS on. That was my intro. Just got weird there. Okay, let's talk about it. Whoever can get their lineup in first can go ahead and share it first.
Well, first of all, can we recap what happened last week? If you got, we started this. Hold on. What's the point of doing this if we don't recap the match?
Yes. Jacob got his first win of the season.
We've been playing for 3 weeks. Gabe whooped me the first 2 weeks. This week,
not whoop. It's close.
I won by a fraction of a point. This past week. So now it's 2-1. We got 2 more matchups to go. Let's go.
Let's go. I'm still having a hard time. I guess I gotta go to edit my lineup. Okay. While we do that transition, Apocalypse Movies. Shout out to the best movie review discussion board channel on YouTube. Apocalypse nearing 7,000 subscribers. Go check them out. Trailer reactions, movie reviews, discussions, all things Disney, all things Marvel, and so much more. Thanks, Pocketflix. Yes, because fantasy football is just better, and this is a crucial week, whereas there are trailers dropping every Tuesday, so get over it. Jacob,
no, I'm doing a morning. The only reason we're doing a morning show is because Gabe is off from work.
That's true.
Is anybody else off from work at Apocalypse this early?
Winter. Oh, my goodness. I look like the man from Powder. Look at my arm. I need some sun. All right, Jacob, let's get into some DFS. We've been talking about it. Let's do it. I'm sharing my screen right now. So it looks like I will go first in revealing my lineup to you. Looking to break away here. Break away. Geno Smith, $7,600 value. He gets the nod for me this week against Kansas City. Listen, Seattle has everything to gain and really everything to lose at this point in the season, dropping 2 straight. Their playoff hopes hanging by a thread. I'm not saying they're going to come in and beat Kansas City. I'm just saying they're going to do what they do best, which is throw the ball and obviously run with Kenneth Walker. I expect this to be a shootout nonetheless. Geno Smith gets the start for me against the Kansas City Chiefs. Derrick Henry. You cannot not start Derrick Henry against the Houston Texans. They are the worst team in defending the run. Derrick Henry is going to eat this week, and he finds himself as my running back 1. Then I get a little cheap. Justin Jackson, who has found some fantasy success, which 4 weeks ago when we started the DFS head-to-heads, Justin Jackson was in my lineup. He scored a touchdown then. He's going to score a touchdown again this week. I like his odds as a cheap value running back against Carolina. He's been getting usage, 5 carries, a couple of targets every week. They have the trio at running back there. So the 3-headed dragon, I'm looking to take the cheapest one. That is Justin Jackson. Then I'm taking some long shots in the dark here. Can Chase Claypool catch the long touchdown? The targets haven't been there. Justin Fields isn't throwing the ball a lot. I'm hoping for the long touchdown. Clearly, you see where I'm spending my money with Derrick Henry, so I have to be affordable elsewhere. Then I also spent my money with Amon-Ra St. Brown, wide receiver for the Detroit Lions, going up against the Carolina Panthers this week. He's just been on a tear. The Detroit Lions team has been playing great as of late. Same with Amon-Ra St. Brown. I love him this week. That's where I invested my money. Also, with the news that Devin Duvernay hasn't been doing a lot for fantasy, but he is an important part of that team. He's out. He's on IR. We've seen kind of the fantasy woes of Mark Andrews, Tyler Huntley. I just read somewhere that Lamar Jackson has missed his 9th practice in a row, meaning he's highly unlikely to play even this week. Demarcus Robinson has been getting some love. Not great, but enough to be serviceable. I have him here as my wide receiver 3. Then I spent up elsewhere too. Travis Kelce, tight end 1. Overall, look for him to have a great game. I went for the cannons, though, at wide receiver after Amon-Ra St. Brown, and it's really noticeable here as Jameson Williams. First career game, 50-yard touchdown. Since then, been pretty quiet. What's to say there can't be another one? I think he's a great DFS play if you're just throwing a dart out there. Like Jacob and I talked about earlier, there are literally 30 wide receivers in Detroit. I'm rolling my dice with this one. With these 2, actually, because I also have Amon-Ra St. Brown in my lineup as well. Defense, sticking with the Detroit Lions. So I'm going heavy in the paint with Detroit Lions players this week. I love their matchup against Carolina. I just think Sam Darnold is fluky, and he's going to turn the ball over a few times. So there you have it. That's my lineup this week. Geno Smith at QB, Derrick Henry, Justin Jackson at running back. Wide receivers are Chris Claypool, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Demarcus Robinson, and Jameson Williams. Tight end is Travis Kelce, and my Lions defense are going to make it the push for 3-1 against Jacob this week.
Let me ask you a question, Gabe. Do you have your screen split right now? Like you have your StreamYard on one side and the
Yeah, was it noticeable or
FanDuel.
something?
No, I mean it. That's why, and you did it with the spreadsheets too. That's why it looks way better because it's
Oh,
only
yes.
bringing up part of it, which is it actually looks really good that way. So I'm going to do the same thing.
Shout out to Windows 11 for the sponsor. We appreciate you guys. Yes, Windows 11. You can move tabs everywhere you want.
Awesome. So
Jacob, what do you think about my lineup, man?
Oh, yeah, I like your lineup. It's
Please tell me,
interesting.
are there any similarities?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, then let's see it, man.
There's definitely some crossover, but no, I think you got a good lineup. Look, it's always like, okay, if you're spending up, you got to find some discounts. So that's kind of been our theme here every week that we talk. I mean, everybody does that.
Well, I would say, Jacob, you've kind of had you can pull yours up right now. You've kind of had the same theme over the last few weeks where you spend money at the positions that are scarce, right? You want those number one tight ends, you want those number one QBs, whereas I've kind of been volatile in one position, either a running back or wide receiver, then kind of just guessed everywhere else. So it's interesting to say the least. Already at the top, let's talk about it.
Yeah. So if you notice, like before the like last week when we shared it, it was like spread out, and now it's like really focused on this. So we're gonna have to start doing this split screen thing from now on. But here we go. So yes, there's one thing that I told you that I always do every week in DFS, and you did it too. So we'll talk about that in a second. But I'll give you guys a hint. I did not realize I have 4 Chiefs in my lineup. I did not even realize that until right now. So I guess I'm riding or dying with the Chiefs this week, but you can't really go wrong doing that. I got Patrick Mahomes at QB. First thing I did was put Patrick Mahomes into my lineup. So that means I have to find some discounts at running back. Samaje Perine. This is crazy that he's only 5,500. He's been playing better than Joe Mixon. He's been playing better than Joe Mixon as of recent. And I have a feeling that, Cincinnati is going to use them. Use Samaje Perine a lot more than they have been throughout, like in the past couple years. Like, I think it's kind of a split backfield, and you're getting Perine for 5,500. I think that's a steal. I got Jerick McKinnon in the top scoring running back for the past 2 weeks. Can't go wrong there, getting him for 7,300. I also have a Detroit Lion. Look, there's so many Detroit Lion wide receivers. You can have 10 lineups, and all of them will have a different Detroit Lion wide receiver. Mine this week is DJ Chark. Still at 5,700. Great matchup. One of these guys are going to go off. Maybe 2 of them. I hope it's not your 2. I hope my guy Chark goes off as well. Then I got KJ Osborne coming off a really good performance. And I just think KJ Osborne is like a Tyler Boyd guy, right? Where he's the third guy there, but any given week he can have a monster game. So I don't think it's bad going with KJ for 6,100. I also got Terry McLaurin. Now, I talked about it earlier. The Niners give up fantasy points to the wide receiver. If you see here, they're 20th, which means they're the 20th worst against fantasy wide receivers. So Terry, if anybody's going to have a decent game, it's going to be some of the wide receivers there in Washington. And so I'm okay firing up Terry McLaurin at 7,000. Even though Dotson obviously is a touchdown machine, I think McLaurin's a good price there. And of course, I said I always put Travis Kelce in whenever I can. So we both have Travis Kelce in, but that's not the only similarity we have here. Remember earlier when you were doing your running back rankings, and I said I would start Pacheco and McKinnon? Looks like that's what I'm doing. I did not consciously put 4 Chiefs into my lineup. It just happened the way the money worked out. So the problem is, though, all 4 of them probably aren't going to go off. So I'm actually limiting the ceiling of my lineup, but I'm also guaranteeing myself a safe floor. So that's an interesting thing when you're considering these lineups. It's a huge stack for me. And I also have the Detroit Lions in at defense here. And look, Carolina, it's terrible. The Lions are playing great. Aiden Hutchinson's in there. I think they're going to put up some fantasy points against the Carolina. So we both have Kelce. We both have Detroit. And I got a whole bunch of Chiefs in my lineup. So, yeah, man, it's going to be interesting. I'm trying to I'm trying to tie you here, so it's gonna be fun. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I don't know if it happens, Jacob, but sure. I gotta get a little salty somewhere, okay? I just have to. I have to get a little
Okay,
salty.
well, then what do you hate about my lineup? Where am I making a mistake? Stacking all these Chiefs?
No. If you're gonna have any multiple amount of players from one given team, it's the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, come on, like that's a no-brainer. It looks good, and actually, I truly do think it looks a little bit better than my lineup this week. I think I took more deep shots at wide receiver. I think your team is a little bit more balanced. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. But when Derrick Henry goes out for 50 and basically wins it for me,
so
very mad.
Yeah, I don't blame everyone. You putting Derrick Henry in your lineup, like he goes off against Houston. I'm going against Derrick Henry in 2 leagues this week for the fantasy playoffs, and I'm just assuming I lost. So RIP to those teams.
Really quick though, we don't talk about a lot of weather on this show, even though I have a meteorologist degree. Just kidding, I don't. But MJ23 says you might want to recheck starting all those Kansas City players. They're playing in Kansas City where they're expected to have a negative 40 degrees. I don't think that's possible. But we're talking wind showers of negative 40. Oh, okay, I can see that. That doesn't make sense to me. But it's going to be cold in Kansas City.
If anything, that's good for Pacheco.
It's good for the running backs, yeah, and Jerick McKinnon.
Not McKinnon. I guess, yeah, true. So it might help me, to be honest. Like if I was starting MVS or any of the wide receivers, sure, but I'm cool with Mahomes. Oh man, we'll see. I mean, I'm sticking with my lineup. Like I think once we do this, because we both had to change our lineups last week, I think it's fair to say if there's a quarterback change or if one of our players gets injured, we can change our lineup. But other than that, I think we have to stick with our lineups.
I feel it.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Those are our DFS clips of the week. Head-to-head, looking to make it 2-2 or 3-1. So we'll see.
So if I lose this week, then I can't catch up to you unless we play week 18. We should actually play week 18. Why not?
Of course, we're going to. I didn't think we weren't. MJ23, are you or Mersaz? Let us know down in the chat because that's what we've been speculating. But nonetheless, man, we appreciate you, kid. Thanks for coming out. If you are Mersaz, it never fails. I am an arch nemesis of all Mersazes when it comes to fantasy football because he took me out in the Rio League just this last week. So, again, MJ23, if you are a Mersaz, let us know. With that being said, we're about to get out of here today. We appreciate all of you guys for coming by. Thank you so much. Please feel free to drop a like. If you think we earned it, please drop a subscribe. It does so much for us. With that being said, you can find us anywhere in the social media landscape, Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram at First Round Fantasy. You can find us here where you're looking at our faces on YouTube at First Round Fantasy or anywhere you listen to your podcast, most notably Spotify or Apple Premium. Jacob, it's time to get out of here. We are doing a live show tomorrow. I don't know if we're going to make it work. I will be here tomorrow night. That is the decision I am making here. So, Jacob, you're either with me or not, but I'm not trying to put you on the spot. Let's think about it. With that being said, check us out tomorrow sometime between 5 and 8 p.m. PCT. We're going to be answering all your Fantasy Start Sit questions. Yes, there are 11 games on Saturday, only 3 on Sunday. So there's definitely some talk to be had, and we're here.
So basically, Saturday is Sunday.
Basically, Saturday is Sunday. Thursday's tonight. Monday's Monday. There's just games everywhere. It's going to be crazy, but also so exciting. We wish you the best of luck in your fantasy matchups this week. And I'm going to get us queued up out here with the bold take of the day. Are you ready, Jacob?
Let's go.
It's come to my attention that there might be a potential blizzard. Yes, I should have known that 2 hours while I was planning my notes for today, but I didn't. I just found that out right now. Thanks, MJ23. And with that being said, those frigid temperatures are going to seep into Kansas City. They're going to seep into that Kansas City defense, and they are going to lose. They're going to go down to the Seattle Seahawks, who have everything to gain and everything to lose at the same time. Geno Smith comes in. He throws for 1 touchdown. Kenneth Walker goes off for 2 touchdowns, and the Kansas City Chiefs fall mightily to the Seattle Seahawks. You heard it here first. Good luck. Have a great week. Peace.